You're listening to The Grip, where we take hold of mindset and martial arts. Now, let's get started. Today's guest is someone who truly embodies the idea that there's no single path into martial arts or into a meaningful life built around movement, discipline, and service. He grew up in Brookyn, New York, and later made the bold decision to move across the country to start not one, but two businesses, Orion Sports Club and an insurance brokerage. Through Orion, he's also founded a nonprofit dedicated to bringing access to sports and physical activity to youth from low-income families and refugee communities, using movement as a tool for confidence, connection, and opportunity. What makes his story especially unique is the breadth of his background. He's earned a bachelor's degree in chemistry, is a certified professional ski instructor, and has competed and performed in ballroom and Latin dance. He's been on stage in plays and choir performances, spent many years fencing at a competitive level, and eventually found his way into martial arts, beginning with Soviet-style boxing and expanding into Brazilian jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, and Muay Thai. His journey weaves together science and art, business and service, tradition and exploration. It's a powerful example of how diverse experiences can shape not only how we train, but why we train. I'm excited to dig into his story, his philosophy, and the path that brought him to where he is today. I'm thrilled to welcome today's guest, Boris Lamberg.
Hello.
Hi. Thanks for coming on, Boris. I was actually really excited when Serge reached out. I'm not sure if he volunteered you or voluntold you, but either way, I was super stoked just because I met Serge towards the earlier stages at Warrior Strength. I was pretty new there, and I think he was too. And as you know, Serge is a very chatty, friendly individual, and so it was so fun. As we would train together, he was kind of keeping me in the loop with your guys' opening process and just developing the gym that you guys are in today. But it's cool that it came full circle, and I'm really excited to see where you guys are now. So
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. Yeah, Serge loves to chat, loves to push people out into the limelight as well. But I'm happy to to be here and kind of give our side of it. So.
absolutely. And before we get into that, I always like to get a little bit of a background. And especially for you, when you filled out the guest intake form, I was like, oh my gosh, okay, this guy has just dabbled in all the things. So let's just start from the beginning. So you grew up in Brookyn with immigrant parents. So can you explain a little bit about what life was like for you and your family back then?
Yeah. So my parents are from Russia, or from like the Soviet bloc, and we're kind of like first generation here. It's me, I have a twin sister, and my older brother Alex, who is also one of the owners at Orion. And we grew up in Brookyn, which I love to tell everybody. I will represent Brookyn till I die, even when I'm thousands of miles away on the West Coast. I grew up in the 90s, which is, I think, probably one of the best times to grow up in New York. It was kind of like post the dangerous New York, which kind of was like in the 80s. And it was the peak of, tourism and freedom. And we were basically raised by our mom because our dad was, the breadwinner, and he was in Russia doing business stuff when we were born. So our mom was kind of raising us for a little bit on our own. And we kind of like grew up broke, but not really, so we had an interesting perspective on that because like we didn't know as kids that that's a different lifestyle or whatever. We had everything that we needed. We always had food on the table, and we always had like something fun to do. And being one sibling out of three, you always have like something to do, someone to be around with. We also have cousins that we grew up with. So I feel like I grew up in a very big family in a very big home and was never bored. And so we were doing a lot of different things. We were running around, terrorizing Brookyn basically as people. And having parents who are from a different country is really interesting because like you don't recognize that they might be struggling with the language, right? Or trying to understand the culture or anything like that. And what's interesting is like we got a good mix of both cultures. So in elementary school, for instance, it was like a school that was just down the street, a public school, not far from where we were. But we were super lucky because it was actually a very good elementary school. It had a very good like honors program. And on top of that, separately, it had an honors program that also had Russian language
Mm.
as a part of it. And so we had to test into it, which we did, because our mother would never would never let us fail. But we were basically like in a group of Russian speaking kids in this Russian speaking program in a really good public school. And so that was a really good way to connect to our roots and keep our language. And those same kids, we had like a a core group of friends that we all had. We all ended up going to the same high school in Staten Island that also had a Russian program. This one was like for a different reason than, let's say, the elementary school. In New York, we have what is called like specialized high schools. They're public schools, but you also can test into them. You kind of take like SAT, but like for high schools. And it was like one of the top schools in New York City. And they had a Russian program because when they opened way back, I think in like the 70s and the 80s, they were focused on being an engineering school. And during the Cold War, in the space race, Russia was known as like one of the best engineering, places in the world. And so the school decided that their kids should learn Russian in order to be able to read like all of these engineering documents. And then fast forward,
Oh, how
30, 40
interesting.
years. Yeah, fast forward 30, 40 years. Now there's like a lot of Russian speaking people in New York. And so a lot of us end up at the school just because we know there's a Russian speaking program and we, would feel more at home there.
Sure.
And so we had this opportunity to kind of like keep our core culture, our core friends, and also get the best of both worlds, like the American school system and also that culture.
Yeah. And I can only imagine how meaningful that was to your parents too, to have that availability, be able to be immersed into a community like that and to see your kids in a different country still be able to have some of the roots.
Yeah. I mean, New York is, I think it's got probably one of the biggest like Russian speaking populations in America. So it wasn't very hard for them to kind
Hmm.
of keep connected. A lot of people from the Soviet bloc end up in New York. We also have a big population out here in Washington. And again, I don't know how they looked at it necessarily, but I think they were definitely happy that we were able to preserve it. I think the main thing to them was that we get a good education and that we prepare ourselves well for the future. Like our mom, the reason why I have such a varied background, for instance, right? Like all of these different things that I've done is because our mom made us do literally everything. Just everything, anything that you can imagine, we've done it, right? And, as a kid, it would be kind of like crazy because we were doing something new all the time. And it felt like, on one hand, we were being forced to do it. And then on the other hand, looking back at it, we were just getting an opportunity to try everything, maybe that our parents didn't have the chance to.
Right.
And so because of that, we got to try a lot of different things and it really pushed us into kind of like appreciating, what we have and what we want to do. And so I mean just a really like our mom was like a really strong influence for us and she
Yeah.
is always she's like a very stereotypical Soviet mom is what I will say and very strict but also very loving. And so we kind of knew discipline from both of our parents. My dad was also a very like strict person. His dad was like a boxer and kind of have like a military background. So our dad really brought, that kind of vibe to us.
Hmm.
And so we kind of lived with a very, in a sense, overbearing parenthood, but it was only like, listen, this is so that you have the best path forward, right? Like
Sure.
you gotta do this.
Although
And
strict came with good intentions.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It was
Yeah.
never like, I know a lot of kids who had like helicopter parents, and it was never really that because we were really given the opportunity to be responsible for ourselves fairly early. We were taking the bus to school by ourselves in middle school. And albeit it wasn't super far away, but we were taking the bus by ourselves, going to school, coming back home, staying after school, doing, whatever activities. And once we hit high school, they stopped really leaning down on us for our grades and our extracurriculars. And it was kind of the sense like, you're really gonna have to figure it out on your own. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
when you do not well, we're gonna be disappointed. Never forget that. We're always disappointed. But yeah, yeah. But like, this is your life to live. We've tried to give you the tools, and like, you figure it out after that.
Sure.
And we really took that in stride. And I say we, it's me and my twin sister. And so
Mm-hmm.
I really feel like we did so much together that I think that's probably why it wasn't so difficult to have this sense of responsibility, because I had somebody to share it with, somebody to kind of carry half of that burden. And we
Mm-hmm.
would motivate each other and support each other. And so it didn't feel like we were alone. We were
Yeah.
just doing what we had to do and kind of like together.
Yeah. Yeah. And you tell me a little bit about twin life, because my youngest brother and sister are twins
Hmm.
as well. And I do think that there's just got to be some little twin connection for sure. I mean, the bond that they have and the connectedness and just the experiences that you guys get to share growing up and as you're in young adulthood, it is something special that obviously not everybody gets. And so tell me a little bit about how that experience was for you.
I think being a twin is probably one of the best and coolest things ever. I think I really like won the lottery in that sense. And I know that's not necessarily true for everybody. In the schools that we had gone to and grown up in, we actually met a lot of pairs of twins, which is really crazy. But I think when you're a twin, or if you're like, let's say you drive a red car, you'll always notice other red cars, right? So as a twin, I think we just noticed other twins more. But in
Yeah.
that elementary school Russian little core class that we had another pair of twins in that class.
Mm-hmm.
And they were also a boy and a girl. So it was a very interesting dynamic for us to kind of see, to grow up alongside that. I think being a twin is wonderful and amazing. And when we were kids, it wasn't without a struggle. But mostly because any siblings, I think, are gonna have that, like, you know,
Oh, yeah.
fights
Got to
and
push the
all of that.
boundaries a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah. And when I don't remember a lot when I was younger. I don't know why. I just anything past like 7, I just really don't remember. But we have pictures and videos of us just, being super cute and together all the time. And my sister was always really protective of me. When I was younger, I was sick. I was pretty sick for a bit, and my sister grew bigger and faster than me at the time. And so she was always really protective of me. And then through elementary school, we were really close because we were in one class and we had one friend group. And then in middle school, we went to the same school, but we had different classes, completely separated. She had her own friend group. I had my own friend group. We didn't even really talk, even though we had one room at home. It just wasn't, I don't know, we just didn't talk. And then we had kind of like a coming back together moment somewhere towards the end of middle school. My sister was bullied a lot. Girls are just horrible, I
Mm-hmm.
gotta say, unfortunately,
Absolutely.
especially in that age. And so
Mm-hmm.
she was bullied a lot. And I think I didn't really notice because I was living in my own world. Eventually, she kind of opened up. She talked about it. And we just had a conversation of like, why aren't we talking? Why don't we get along more? We love each other. Our
Mm-hmm.
family is like so filled with love. I think that's one of the things that was ingrained in us is you have family, you should rely on your family, you love your family, and we all really support each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had that moment where we were just, sitting, talking, crying, sobbing.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, our friendship and, our twinship really, really grew closer. And then in high school, we were in the same high school and we had, again, our same friend group from elementary school. So we were really, really close from there. And we've always supported each other. We've always fought for each other. And we always kept the competitiveness up, right? Like we wanted to always motivate and push each other. But at the same time, we were never like putting the other person down. It would always be like, okay, how can I help you do better? Right?
Mhm.
Even if it might be through like harsh words, and we are from New York, so we never really like held our tongue. We'll say straight up what we think.
Yeah.
It always came from a place of love, not malice.
Yeah.
And so it's a really good bond. And about the twin thing, we are very different people, and at the same time, we're exactly alike. We will say the same thing at the same time. We will think the same way. My sister lives in San Francisco. We haven't lived together in over 10 years, and when we get together, I mean, we'll say the same things at the same time, you know?
Yeah.
In high school, when we were already in our separate rooms and getting dressed, there would be days when we would dress the same, like same colors. We would have like striped shirts, which is crazy, right? Like we don't even have a lot of striped shirts, and we would wear them at the same time. So it's, yeah, I think there's definitely something to it, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And so your sister's in San Francisco. Where is your mom and brother and the rest of your family? Are they still back in New York?
So my brother is here, Alex. We run the club together. We
Nice.
also work in insurance together. My mom is in New York, so she lives in upstate New York now, and the majority of my cousins and extended family also live out in New York, and so I get to see them once or twice a year when we fly
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah. So is your dad still in Russia? Or, I mean, like, did you kind of grow out without his presence majority of the time?
No, so my dad passed away when I was 19. He passed away from cancer, but he was in Russia when we were young for only a few years. And then he came back to America because my parents actually met here in America.
Okay.
Because my dad had already moved here and my mom was visiting friends for the first time. You know, she was visiting America for the first
Yeah.
time. And somehow, either at a party or like through a friend of a friend, they had met. And then we happened. And so they actually continued, you know, their love affair back in Russia before then finally moving back to America. But yeah, we grew up with both of our parents in a very strict and intense household. My dad was super busy all the
Yeah.
time. You
Yeah.
know, he would be out the door at like 6 a.m. and then back home at like 6 or 7. So
Yeah.
he worked as an electrical engineer for a while. Then he started his own business, which was related to that. Then, like, one of the businesses failed. He tried to start another one. It was kind of these things back and forth.
Mhm.
And so he was always working. He was always grinding,
Yeah.
and yeah, still had time to yell at us though.
Hey, they managed to do that, but again, with
Yeah,
love, I'm sure.
yeah. First, no. Um, I respect my dad a lot, and I think that our kind of inner discipline and certain outlooks on life were really influenced by him.
Yeah.
Uh, If my personality as a whole was influenced by my mom, the underlying foundation was probably by my dad. You know, that's how
Yeah.
I would look at it.
It sounds like you have a very impactful family, so that's very cool. Okay, so you kind of broke down what your school system was like. What eventually drove you to pursue a degree in chemistry?
So I even remember when I made this decision because it was in middle school. And so I had also a rough middle school, but for different reasons than my sister. She was bullied a lot by peers. I feel like I was bullied by the school system and by the teachers that I had, unfortunately. I in general, I've always loved learning. I'm a voracious reader. I always have been, especially when I was younger and I was sick. There wasn't a lot to do except read, and it kind of you can kind of get away from everything when you're in a book, right? You can be in a completely different world. So
Mm.
I've always loved the pursuit of knowledge and trying to learn everything as much as I could. But I had a few teachers, and some of them were new to teaching as a whole, that you know, for one reason or other, they either gave me a bad grade or didn't understand what I was going through or whatever. And I ended up, hating certain subjects. And the one of the only things that I did well in was science. And we had like a small section, I think in eighth grade. I'm trying to remember what that the class was called, but the section of that class was science, and in it was chemistry, one of the things that we were doing, and I did like phenomenally well in just specifically in chemistry, and I was like, I think I could do this. This seems fun. This seems doable. Um, and I was thinking about making something. I was always attracted to the idea of like creating something, doing
Mm-hmm.
something. And so I was already thinking about it then, that chemistry is something I'm going to pursue. And chemistry is a great thing. If you tell your, Soviet parents, like, I'm going to be a scientist, I'm going to be a chemist, I'm going to be whatever, right? It's a half a step away from being a doctor, and you're already on the right track. So, and then in high school, it was a completely different experience in terms of schooling. We did really well. We had a super great support system. I did really well in all of my classes for the most part, and I've loved science ever since. Physics is really great. Biology was really great, but I was thinking physics has a lot of math. I don't really love math. I failed math in middle school. So I was kind of straying away from that. Biology was, in my eyes, too easy because all I had to do is memorize stuff for biology. And I was thinking, I don't want to just memorize things all day. Chemistry has like a good mix of that where you have to think through certain problems, you have to analyze situations, but then you also have to remember a ton of stuff. And I was
Mm-hmm.
thinking that could be interesting, that could be challenging, and that's what I decided to pursue. And I did that through college, and I got by, and then I graduated, and I got a job. And
Got a job
I
in
still like
what? Because
in
even
chemistry.
so what I
Yeah,
mean, what does that involve though? Because to
yeah.
me, I'm like,
So
I hear degree in chemistry. I'm over here like I crawled my way out of basic chem, physics. I mean, everything that you're explaining that is so cool and passionate. I'm over here like that was probably one of the toughest times of my life. Was just those levels of classes because it takes a different type of person to really pursue that degree. So then my mind, again, it's just maybe because I'm not super familiar with the content, is what do you then aspire to be, or what other avenues come from a chemistry degree?
you could actually do so much with a chemistry degree or a bachelor's of science, right? In anything. Also, just to your point of, like, it's so tough. I do think that there's people who like chemistry and then there's everybody else. Because I've talked to so many people and even from different countries, different places, wherever people have kind of dealt with chemistry. They're like, I've never understood it. I have absolutely no idea what it is. And it was the worst subject I had in school. And I was like, wow, I kind of just loved chemistry. I didn't even, think about it that way. And so there's a lot of different avenues that you could pursue. I was a lab chemist. I loved being in the lab. My focus towards the end of college and the jobs that I ended up having was organic chemistry. And the college that I actually went to college in Boston. It is Northeastern University. And the reason why me and my sister both went to the same college, but she was actually a business major. And I decided to do chemistry. But the reason why we chose this college so far from home was that they still have a co-op program where basically the school gives you the opportunity and also helps you get a job while you're learning, while you're still working on your degree. So the way it would work is you basically would learn for 6 months at a time. You would take classes, and then you would work for 6 months.
Mm.
You would do like 6 month stints at a job if you could find one. But 90% of the people who went to the college would obviously find it. They kind of really help you do that. They
Yeah,
give you a counselor, a person that kind of works your case, helps you learn how to interview, learn how to apply, learn which skills you should focus on.
sure.
And then, you go and you apply to these real world jobs. The first job I had while still in college was at an organic chemistry lab. I worked for Sigma Aldrich, and I was making compounds
Mhm.
that other people and companies would use. And it was really cool because I was learning these things in class, and then I would go
Yeah,
and I would apply the things that I just learned. And some of the things I would learn on the job, I would come back and I would already have an easier time in
sure.
class because I already kind of know how these things work.
Yeah, that's a really cool format.
Yeah. And so after I graduated, just continued in that same kind of path. And I ended up working as a lab chemist at an R&D team at a biotech startup. And the company focuses on treatments for genetic diseases. There's different avenues for that, but the stuff that I was working on was focusing treatment on Duchenne's muscular dystrophy, which is a disease that affects young boys. It's a genetic disease. It's really difficult to treat. There's almost no treatments for it, and it is fatal, 100%.
Mm.
It just takes a long time sometimes, basically. The Duchenne's muscular dystrophy is basically a disease where your body connective tissue gets converted into like hard, almost plaque or kind of like almost bone-like material. And most people don't live past 20.
Wow.
Like most boys, yeah, because eventually their muscles stop working, right? So
Hmm.
either their heart stops pumping, maybe they can't breathe as much, whatever, things like that, and then they die. And so we were working on a treatment to either alleviate some of their symptoms or help them live longer and things like that. And so I would work on the back end. We were making basically small strands of DNA as a treatment. And, I'm not going to go into it because there's a lot of science, but that's what I was doing for a few years before I up and left, moved
Yeah.
across the country to do something completely different.
Yeah. How cool, though. How
Yeah.
cool. So, how many people would even be working in the lab at the same time? I mean, were these kind of smaller labs, or I'm sure it
So,
depends on the company,
yeah.
but
And even though we were a startup, the company counts as a startup, but it had like 100 people, maybe 120.
whoa.
Yeah. So in
Okay.
biotech, the reason why that still counts as a startup is because biotech and pharma, you know, it's 1,000 people working. They have like huge, it's the scale that they actually operate on is huge.
Yeah. Have you ever been
And
into any of those places where it's like
yeah,
that big? Yeah.
yeah. Luckily not working.
Yeah.
I've just been there to learn or kind
Sure.
of see what they do, but
Yeah.
I would never want to work in that kind of environment because then you really feel like a cog, like you
Uh,
really feel like a small fraction of a fraction.
yeah.
And I've always wanted to feel important, like
Hmm.
I'm doing something,
Sure.
even though you could feel important in whatever you do, right? Half of that is just your mindset and your approach to life. But I
Sure.
always wanted to feel like I'm a step away from the end point of whatever I've contributed to, just because I get more motivated when I can see that I've done something.
Yeah.
But yeah, in my team, I had 4 other people on my team specifically. It was a really small R&D group, but our chemistry like department had maybe 30 to 40 people, and we
Okay.
had 5 or 6 different groups, and we all worked together. Just because my team was small doesn't mean that we were super isolated. We worked with
Yeah.
everybody,
Yeah.
and I got to do so many different things, not just the stuff that I was working on. I got to try all kinds of super cool things,
Yeah.
and I still love chemistry. I still love the science, and I would, work behind a bench in a heartbeat, but I'm on a different path for now.
Absolutely. Yeah, a completely different path. And
Yeah.
we are going to dive into it. But I first want you to explain your progression through all of your extracurricular activities because your background is so diverse. I mean, it makes sense now that because you had just a motivating mother that really wanted you guys to have opportunities. And so tell me a little bit about how dance, choir, plays, fencing, skiing, all the things came into your life and just what that looked like.
A lot of all of those things started when I was young and just carried through
Through
my life.
clubs or through school or both?
Everything. So for instance, for choir and dance and the shows that we did, um, that started in elementary school through our we had a choir class. And then we had an after school program where we could do theater. And the lady who was running that after school program was a Russian speaking lady because the school had a bunch of Russian speaking people. We had a Russian speaking program. And she got to know us. It was me, my sister, our actual like core friend group all ended up doing this after school program and doing choir stuff. And she got to know us. We were there very often. And she happened to host plays and like a radio show outside of school and invited us out. We kind of joined their troupe for a little bit. I did some, singing practice and things like that outside of it. And we did maybe a little bit of dance um the in the school system. For dance, for ballroom dancing, I actually, when I was younger, started with ballet. If you have Soviet parents, you're gonna do ballet. So I'm a boy. And
What?
I have a girl sister, and on top of that I have three other cousins who are also girls, and we would do a lot of activities together, and nobody's asking, do you want to go do boy stuff, right? I'm doing whatever
You're
everybody else
doing
is doing.
ballet.
Yeah, I'm doing ballet, and I hated ballet. We actually all hated ballet. The only person who continued doing ballet was our younger cousin Julia, and she did it for many years and was kind of sad about it after because it wrecked her body. Ballet is so tough. I think
It seems
jujitsu is
extreme.
easier than ballet, and I'll be 100% with
No,
you.
it seems extremely rigorous.
Yeah.
Just the amount of conditioning. I don't think it doesn't seem like many other activities or sports can relate to the type of training that ballet requires and the movements. And I don't even know, I'm sure, half of it. And I think it's sometimes off of movies and certain documentaries. Sometimes it is portrayed about how challenging it is. But I'm sure majority of the population, if you haven't tried ballet, you probably don't even know how difficult it is. But they do it beautifully.
Yeah.
So
That's the people who do it beautifully. It's the survivors. It's the so few that have made it so far, because it's probably one of the toughest sports is ballet.
Yeah.
And so we hated it. We told our mom we hate it. We don't want to do this. We went to, I think, some kind of Russian school for ballet in New York, and they were torturing kids. We were 6 or 7, and it really felt like torture. And what's a step away from that? Ballroom. And somehow we ended up, there was a school for ballroom not very far from where we lived. I think it was actually down the street from where I lived in Brooklyn when we were younger. And it was also another Russian speaking run place. And
So
we started doing it.
did you
Yeah.
sit down with your mom and negotiate okay, because how did this merge happen? It was, what came
No,
to fruition
think-
to get to luckily move to ballroom instead of being tortured with ballet?
I think it was the amount of tears shed, to be honest with you. I think it was a collective amount of tears shed. If it was one of us and the other one was willing to do it, I think we might have still had to stick with it, but we both hated it and our cousins hated it. And so it was kind of understood oh, they're probably not going to enjoy doing this, and we're going to have to suffer them suffering.
Yeah.
And so we just got put into a different thing.
Yeah.
And we were young enough that we didn't have any kind of notion that this isn't a normal thing, right? I don't know most people who do ballet or who do ballroom,
Sure.
right? These are rare kind of sports.
Yeah.
And to us, it was normal. I mean, we got told that that's what we were going to do, and we went and did it. And then obviously as we got older and from our peers and the people around us, we understood that that's kind of a different thing to do.
Yeah.
And luckily we were never really bullied for it. I feel like in middle school, it would have been an easy thing to be bullied for doing ballroom, but that never came up.
Yeah.
So I just, we were doing it on our own, and we were competing from a fairly young age for ballroom. And eventually around high school, I kind of grew out of that and wanted to do something different. But we continued to do shows in high school. We had a performing arts group in high school. We opened a dance club in high school. We did some Latin dancing, we did some ballroom dancing, and then I continued that into college where I joined the Latin dance team. And so I was doing, salsa, bachata,
Yeah.
all of that kind of stuff. So that's kind of the through line for dance. I haven't danced in a while, but because of that background, I think the world as a whole can be categorized as dance. Like every interaction, things like that, it is really a dance and it is
Mm,
a performance. And Shakespeare, when he called the world a stage, really kind of hit it on the head with that
yeah.
one. Maybe just because of all of the different influences that I've had in my life, but I really think that there is a flow to this world, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that there's a beat that maybe people don't notice, but it's definitely there.
Yeah.
Even, conversations are a flow and a dance, and the work that you do. Uh, and that kind of rhythm and understanding of flow helps a lot in boxing. That, I see kind of the dance in boxing all the time, in fencing, in all of the different sports. I
Mm-hmm.
think that is a through line that I've had, and so it's a very interesting perspective for
Yeah.
me
Cool
to see
connection
it.
though.
Yeah, yeah.
Very cool.
And our mom had us do so many other things. I learned how to play the piano. I learned how to play the guitar. We did basketball. We did soccer. We did, by the way, soccer, basketball, baseball that we did for like 5 minutes. We were horrible at American sports for some reason. I don't know. We just couldn't do it. I was in competitive swim. We started skiing at a super early age. I think they had us on the snow at 5 years old. And then we just grew up with that. We were in, ski school for a long time. Then we did competitive ski racing, and then eventually did ski instructor stuff, got certified,
How
all
close is
all of that.
that to you in Brooklyn, though? I mean, like, how accessible was skiing? Because I'm like, where did this take
Yeah.
place?
So when we were younger, our parents used to go to the Poconos in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And so there was a small mountain near there, and that's where we first learned to ski. And then our cousins and our uncles, aunts, they ended up in upstate New York at a place called Hunter Mountain. It's about 2.5 hours away from the city. And they tried it out first. Then they kind of called us out and they were like, oh, it's pretty awesome out here. We went to go check it out. We were all renting cabins for a year. And then eventually we found a house that was it was big enough to house all three of our families, because it's our cousins are our families kind of, and us. And
Mm-hmm.
so we've had a house upstate since I was maybe 10. And we would go there in the winter and ski the whole winter. And then we would go in the summer and we would do all kinds of different summer activities like
Fun.
hiking, mountain biking, all of those things. So
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to grow up in the city and also had an outdoor life.
Yeah. Very cool. How do you feel like the Brooklyn environment just shaped you and your approach to training and leadership and business and where you're at today?
I think, well, Brooklyn and New York as a whole is very specific. And then the East Coast as a whole is also very different than, let's
Yeah.
say, the West Coast. And I do think I have an East Coast spirit. So we're very quick. We want to get everything done. We'll say how it is. And in Brooklyn, there's a multitude of cultures, of all kinds of different people, different walks of life. And I think that shaped me in the sense that um, I've never stopped and thought that something isn't possible, or like this is one way that it should be done, and that's it. Because we saw so many different lifestyles and different ways of doing things,
Mm.
different cultures, and it was a really free environment, and it was a kind of environment where you go and you do it yourself. We had the freedom to do whatever we wanted, and the kind of wherewithal to be cautious about it.
Mm.
Like,
Yeah.
we lived in good neighborhoods that were right next to bad neighborhoods. And you had to know how to behave in one neighborhood and in another neighborhood, right? And that kind of lifestyle just teaches you how to hold
Different
yourself in
different
different
style
kinds of
of dance.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. Exactly. And you kind of get a way of understanding all kinds of different people. And I know how to talk to executives, and I know how to talk to people who, are just regular everyday people, whatever. To me,
Mm.
everybody is a regular everyday person.
Yeah. We're all
I don't
human.
even really get why people love to focus so much on status or on the different positions that people hold in life, because at the end of the day, we put our pants kind of on the same way, right? We put our
Yeah.
socks one at a time, most likely, right? Everybody goes to the bathroom, that kind of thing. Like we are all human, so I'm not sure why you're revering somebody else over anybody else, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, for sure.
Um, and so that kind of lifestyle brought, I think, confidence to us.
Mhm.
And confidence is really important in everything you do, be it sports, be it running a business, whatever it is, you have to be confident. And there's a
Yeah.
difference between confidence and arrogance. I
Mhm.
think arrogance is when you've already taken it too far and you forget that you're just the same as everybody else,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So you gotta have to find that balance.
Yeah. Well, and you clearly had to have some confidence because you eventually packed up and drove
Yep.
across the country to start two businesses with almost no prior business experience. So, how did this decision even come about? And what was going through your mind during that drive across the states?
So the um the decision really happened. It was the pandemic, and the startup that I was at had just failed one of the clinical trials for one of the treatments that they were doing. And so it was kind of two things happening at once where when you're a startup and one of your products fails, that's not good.
Hmm.
Right? So people were getting laid off. And then at the same time it was the pandemic, we were basically staying home away from the lab, I think for almost 2 months we were away from the lab. And in that time, as people were getting laid off, I was thinking, well, I need to have a plan just in case. And I had already done insurance work throughout college for my brother. He helped me pay for college, and I was doing like customer service work and things like that for him.
Hmm.
I got licensed as an insurance agent while I was in Boston so that I could help out and just in case to be like primed and ready for whatever. And yeah, so the pandemic happened. A bunch of team members kind of got laid off and I could see the writing on the wall and I was talking to my brother. He was saying, "Hey, there's an interesting opportunity for you out here. I could help you out. In the meantime, it'll be fun come through." And I was already tired a little bit of Boston. As much as I love the East Coast, I didn't love the Boston weather. It's frozen, it's windy. A lot of my friends had already graduated and were doing their own thing, and I was thinking I should just give it a go. I mean,
Hmm.
what's the worst that could happen? I could always bounce back and find something else to do. And so I packed up all my stuff. I grabbed my mom and we did a road trip across the US. I think we took like 11 days to go from basically New York to Washington.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we got to see Yellowstone, we got to see Mount Rushmore, Jacksonville, a bunch of random stuff. My mom had never really seen a lot of the parts in the middle of America. I
Yeah.
love going on road trips, so I've had a lot of different opportunities to do that, but my mom had not.
Yeah.
And we kind of just drove across.
Yeah. How
It
special
wasn't
for you guys.
yeah, it wasn't easy. Being with your with your mom in a car for hours at the time is maybe not the easiest thing in the world, but we have similar interests. My mom was a doctor in Russia, and so we'll always have something to talk about, and we'll always have something to yell about. Is how I would describe our relationship. But it was super cool. It was super fun, and it really helped a lot that we could take turns driving because driving for hours is super brutal.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then I made it out to Washington and started from there.
Yeah.
So,
And so, how long had your brother been in Washington at that time?
probably 15 or 16 years.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, had you
Yeah.
visited the state and everything?
Yeah.
Have a general
Yeah.
idea of what you were getting yourself into?
So I've been to before moving here, I had been to Washington a few times. A few times when I was younger and then once when I was already kind of old enough to kind of get my bearings. But it's a different beast when you're visiting and when you move to a place to live there.
Mm-hmm.
And also Seattle, the metro area, it's big and it's different. There's different areas, there's different cities. So it it's one thing to be like, oh yeah, I visited Seattle, and then to be living in Redmond or
Yes.
Sammamish or Kirkland.
Correct.
So it prepared me only in the sense that I knew that there were green trees here. you
Yes,
know?
very much so. Lots of greenery, lots of water.
Yep, yep.
Was it a hard transition for you when you went from Boston to Washington, just culturally? Or, I mean, was there anything specific that stood out where you're like, ooh, this is harder than I thought it was going to be?
Yes and no. I would say the biggest thing is the culture and the lifestyle. I'm used to the East Coast speed. I'm used to the way people on the East Coast interact with each other, and it's very different here. It's a little bit more difficult making friends here, just the way people are. It's cliquey in a way. There's a thing called the Seattle freeze, and it is unfortunately true. People are used to what they're used to, and they don't necessarily want to
Venture out.
venture out. Yeah. So luckily when I moved here, my brother is here, his friends, people that he knows, my business partner in insurance search, who you know. So I kind of got here and I already had a group and
Mm
I had a support system. So in that sense it wasn't very difficult. And then I hit the ground running in terms of work. And it's been that way for the past 6 years.
hmm.
So
Mm hmm.
to say that I've, noticed a difficulty in transitioning, no, I've been working.
Yeah.
And
Which comes with its own difficulties on its own.
the only thing that I will say that is the worst is that the food here is horrible. I will loudly say that to anybody because I had the luxury of growing up in New York City, which is a mecca for food.
Yeah.
I mean, I love going back to New York just to eat,
Mm
just to
hmm.
have the pizza, just to have street food, just to have a sandwich from the bodega. You can't find a normal sandwich here. And so that's the only real difficulty is finding something good to eat out here.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I think to add on, because it's so relatable. My husband and I lived in the Seattle area for a little over 2 years, and there's so many great things about that area, the Pacific Northwest. But it is true. The weather, too, I think was a big one for us as well. And not so much the rain. Everybody says, oh, does it rain as much as you think? Yes, it does. But the overcast. When
Yeah.
you go 1 to 2 weeks of literally no sun, it can take a toll, obviously, on our bodies. And so that was a big transition for us. But luckily, I think being immersed in a community to get exercise in and just a productive work week, those things obviously is what keeps you going. But definitely have to be more effortful when you're in a place like that or intentional. And that's great that you were able to move and have somewhat of an established community. Whether you liked them or not, you were going to kind of merge into it. And luckily, it sounds like you guys all have developed a really cool and strong culture, which is great.
Yeah. It's not without its struggles, for sure. I'll say that. And I will also say about the weather, I think since I moved here, climate change has really hit hard. We do have overcast days, but it's been super dry for these few years. I
Really?
mean, saying that now, we're having some of the worst flooding, in the
Yes.
north and the south that I think we've had in over 20 years
Yeah.
from what I heard. But before this, I mean, we've had droughts for a while and we've had more sunny days than I genuinely thought we would have. And I came from Boston, where I was also living for 5 or 6 years, where our winters are just as long as they are here. They're
Hmm.
just harsh in a different way.
Sure.
We were freezing out there. It's super windy. It's super horrible just in a different way. So when I came here and it's super mild, you don't even notice that the, clouds are bearing down on you if you're working all the time, if you're
Sure.
exercising, if you're doing your sport. And so it was pleasant to be outside
Hmm.
as opposed to Boston where I had to wrap up and
Layer
I'm
up.
scared of even seeing the air outside.
Yeah, yep. And there's going to be goods and bads, and maybe not bads, but challenges to every
Yeah.
place. So what were some of those early mistakes or hard lessons you learned during your first phase of building the sports club? Because how did that even come about? It sounds like your brother explained that there's some opportunities over there, but how did the sports club even come into fruition?
Yeah, so the opportunity was insurance. And so we were doing insurance for a couple of years before the idea for the club even came
Hmm.
about. And it was it was Serge, it was Alex, and a few other people who had this idea. And Alex kind of wanted to do a boxing gym. And it was kind of right at the pandemic and post-pandemic time when a lot of other gyms were closed. And Alex was the reason I got into boxing in the first place. The second that I moved out here, my brother he was basically saying, "That's it, you're going to boxing. You need to get tough. You got to grow a spine. You're going to boxing." And I was like, I'm an adult, right? Like I've been living my life. What are you talking about? And he's like, "You're going to boxing." And the next day we're at a boxing class and I'm getting punched in the face. And so that was my
Nothing,
introduction
just
to
some
boxing.
brotherly love
Yeah,
there.
yeah. And so and I hated boxing when I first started it. And
You're like, which
maybe
is
because
worse? Ballet, boxing, ballet, boxing.
I will still say ballet every time. I'd rather get punched in the face multiple times than do ballet. But yeah, so it was a struggle just because I kind of got thrown into the deep end of boxing. And I really had to take a step back and explain to my brother that I don't know what I'm doing. This isn't the way that I want to enjoy this sport. And so we ended up practicing just on our own time. He really like helped break me through that moment, like when boxing, like I think maybe any sport, but any combat sport, it's really difficult for people who aren't maybe necessarily aggressive, or just most people don't want to hit anybody else, don't want to hurt anybody else. And if you're going to do a combat sport, you're going to eventually have to do that. That's just part of it, right?
Mhm.
Or you're just going to do the fitness aspect of it forever. And he helped break me through that moment of just hit me in the face, he's saying. I'm like crying. I don't want to hit my brother in the face. And he's like, just do it. He's like hitting me, trying to get me angry. And then, eventually I kind of get through that moment. And I start to understand what the sport is about.
Sure.
And this is before we've opened the club. This is basically as soon as I get to Washington. And so we do our insurance stuff. And Alex had a home in Redmond that he ended up selling. So he had some cash. He had this passion, this dream to have a boxing club. And there was a lot of other people with a lot of other ideas. And we kind of got together and we were thinking, why don't we do something more than just a boxing facility?
Hmm.
And in my head, so when I was at first getting involved with all of this, I wasn't really planning on getting super involved. I was just there on the side, like, oh, I think this is a good idea, or this is a
Sure.
good idea. I can help with the paperwork. I can do this and that
Yeah.
because I'm younger. I'm, on the tail end of millennials. So I get computers, I get paperwork. I
Yeah.
mean, I was a scientist, so I think I could figure out that stuff. And so I was kind of just on the side, watching all of this happen, trying to encourage my brother. And as it went along and the project started to get bigger, started to get more serious, I started to add more input and I started to be more vocal about the things that I think are right or that are wrong, and the way that we should be doing things. And I started to take a bigger role in the kind of development
Yeah.
of our club.
And how many people was this, Boris? Because I can imagine the more people that's in we always hear about how many cooks are in the kitchen.
Yeah.
It can get a little crazy, and I'm sure
Yeah, yeah.
opinionated. And so, as
It did.
great as it was to have like the support and all the ideas, I can only imagine how difficult it was to like sift out those details. The more people you add.
So I think maybe there were 6 or 7 of
Okay.
us maybe at one time contributing ideas and, planning the structure or the future of it and what we want to do. But then when it came down to certain actual like business things, doing a business proposal, a lot of that was me. I had a help from our now administrator, Kate. And in terms of the building out part, we had a lot of help. Serge was a really big help in this case. He helped us with certain materials, getting labor. Serge was also a big proponent in making it more of a community center style thing as opposed to just a boxing gym. And we did a lot of the work ourselves. It was me, Alex, Max, for the most part, like hammering concrete. Obviously, contractors that we hired to do all the framing and the structural things. But it was a lot of physical work, and we would basically do our insurance work during the day, and then we would go spend another 5, 6 hours doing physical work in the club for a year. I think we started the build out into January or February of 2022, and we opened January 2023. And
Wow.
obviously, we were done in at the end of December, but all of the finishing touches and all of that, and then we opened in January. And the difficulty, every step of the way was difficult. And I think that's maybe just because we unfortunately only learned the hard way. And somehow only the difficult way is the only way we see through. Even as much as I try to fight against that, we can be pretty stubborn at times. And we learned a lot in hindsight. And when you do something this big yourself, you start to realize why leaning on other people or learning or asking about stuff from other people is so beneficial. Because if we had asked about certain things or talked more to certain people, we would have maybe done things quicker or easier. But at the same time, a lot of the decisions that we made ourselves and we did ourselves, whether they were right or were wrong, were really big moments of growth and learning for us. And even just going through that process with my brother and working through our communication styles and trying to we're very different when it comes to communication and the way we look at the world. He's um very visual and hands-on, and he needs to see it and feel it to understand it. And I can kind of picture things a little bit better. I'm, kind of a little bit, I can step away from the paper and kind of think things through. And so I have to learn how to communicate in a different way, present my
Hmm.
ideas in a different way. And also, we've learned a lot of patience. We learned a lot of thinking through and writing stuff down and being more organized. And yeah, I mean, I'm still learning every day. It's so hard to
Yeah.
run businesses, is what I'll say.
Yeah. What were throughout this process, what were some of the non-negotiables for you guys in terms of either, creating the culture of the gym or the values you wanted within that space, or just ultimately what you guys wanted to offer within your facility? What were you guys like dead set on and it's still there today versus we thought this is what we wanted, but so much has changed.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so boxing was non-negotiable,
Yeah.
right? That's been our core. We still have the most boxing classes. We are a martial arts studio, but we are a boxing gym
Hmm.
in that sense. Now we have a lot of different sports, so we really skew more as an MMA gym, but boxing is at our core just because Alex, that's his passion.
Hmm.
That's something that I've learned to love as well. And um other things, the values of community that we're positioning this place as a community center in a sense. And
Hmm.
what I mean by that is we always want to be a place where people feel welcome, people want to hang out, people enjoy doing the things that they're doing and doing it with others. um so the culture is really important for us. We aren't necessarily only like a recreational gym. We have people who are serious. We have fighters. We have people who want to compete, but we aren't about raising killers. There are gyms out there where the fight culture is really intense and it's really about, survival of the fittest and people are going so hard. And that's something I've never understood. And I've gotten here through other sports, and one of the martial arts sports that I've done is fencing, and they have a completely different approach to culture and to the sport. Fencing is all about respect. And in some ways, it's a forced respect. You always salute your opponent. You always shake hands at the end. There's no yelling on the strip. There's like so many things that you could get, penalized for, flagged for. And so
Hmm.
it's kind of a very strict culture. And then you see other martial arts and it's rougher, it's dirtier, it's different, but we want to preserve respect and discipline
Mm-hmm.
in the way we do things. And so that, I think, has been a through line the whole time. In terms of sports and classes, we've tried so many different things. We had a classroom where we wanted to do after school programs. We, doing like drawing, math, science, and just didn't get enough traction for us. We've done dance, we've done Zumba, we've done yoga, and those things have kind of gone away just because that's not the space that we're in. And what we found is the core martial arts classes have been what we've done well in and what we've learned to love.
Mm-hmm.
So Muay Thai, kickboxing, jujitsu, boxing, those things are kind of what we focused on. And that kind of becomes MMA,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because if you can do a few of those things and then you put them together, now you're a mixed martial artist, right? And so that's kind of been our path forward.
Yeah. And can you explain a little bit? Yes, I know you guys kind of dabbled in different classes that you offered, but can you explain what your facility has to offer too? Because that was something that was really fun chatting with Serge as we're mid roll. And, of course, he's just chatting my ear off about who knows what. And it was fun just to catch up before the classes, after classes, and a lot of the things that he was explaining was just truly how different you guys wanted to approach your gym, but still, maybe take the ideas of some of these other successful gyms and what it has to bring. But I came to a couple of your guys' earlier classes for jujitsu, and your guys' space, one was very modern looking, and you guys offered quite a bit that even some places don't, just as far as like free weights and a few other things. So can you share some of the additional details that you guys provide as far as amenities?
Yeah, we are different, I think, than a lot of the gyms that are out there because we wanted to have the approach of kind of a boutique style facility and gym, but also with the heart of a community center. And we work really hard on keeping a modern, clean style. Clean, I'm underscoring because that's kind of one of our number one priorities. And we've just been to a lot of gyms where they're kind of like broken down, they're dirty, they're grimy, they're underground. And in one sense, that's awesome, right? I've done boxing in a gym like that, and you really feel like you're in a Rocky movie.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that's not the style that we were going for.
Mm-hmm.
And we wanted it to be a place where people feel comfortable all the time, where moms, families can feel like they're in a welcoming and great environment. And so we have a big space where we actually just remodeled a little bit. So when you were there and you were doing jujitsu, most likely you were doing it on a mat that was rolled out. Now we've pretty much matted all of our floors so that all of our sports feel more comfortable. Muay Thai, kickboxing, jujitsu, they have more space. We were able to push out one of our walls a bit, and we have half an octagon in there now. There's like a cage. So there's that aspect of training where you can do a little bit of cage work.
Mm-hmm.
We have a big boxing ring. So we changed the classroom to a small grappling room. So now we have a room kind of dedicated for kids' classes. We have a sauna. We have a small dry sauna. We've got locker rooms with showers. We have a lounge cafe area. We're working on getting the cafe part up and running so that we can serve coffee, snacks, things like that. And so we still have our free weights. We have a leg press. We've got a few benches. So we are trying to kind of create a space where an athlete can be an athlete
Mm-hmm.
and at the same time feel welcome to just hang out.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so I don't know where your I guess status or influence in the club is now, but I know you had said that you've taught skiing, you've been a part of dance, and you've kind of helped teach and coach those. Are you coaching now? And what kind of overlaps do you see between teaching such different disciplines?
So I would say, luckily, I'm not a coach right now. I've helped here and there for coaching, beginner boxing stuff, but I have the luxury of seeing different coaches every day for different classes.
Mm-hmm.
And I see the different aspects that I've had and recognized when I was a coach for skiing and for fencing, for those different aspects. I can see that in the coaching that we have. And half of coaching is really just the approach to people and how to get an idea across to different people who might understand it in a different way. And so seeing the same thing taught in a different way to a different person, I start to understand the sport more and more. And the opportunity to help out and to take somebody who's a complete beginner and at least get them standing in the right way or throwing a punch in the right way and moving their shoulder and holding their fist properly or just even showing them how to walk or how to move in a more coordinated manner. Some of the most interesting cases and people that we've had are people who have never done sports before. We had this, I think, 16-year-old kid who said he has done soccer before, but then, tell him to do like a crouch walk or whatever for boxing. And it's the hardest thing that he's ever done.
Yeah.
He can't even bend his knees the right way in a safe way. Um, and taking that and showing him how to properly move, how to properly bounce and walk and coordinate his body, and seeing that after a couple of months that he's moving faster and is more flexible and is coordinated now in a way that he wasn't before is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And I love teaching. I just don't have the background in martial arts to teach it now, but
Sure.
I love anytime I can give a little bit of advice or give my perspective and try to help a person understand it if they're not getting it yet is one of my favorite things ever. If I could share everything I know and that will help one person, then to me that's enough. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, so how do you feel like your perspective on fighting and self-defense, how has that evolved from you and your brother duking it out privately to where you are today? You've added grappling and various striking into the mix. So, yeah, where's your perspective now?
Um, after the learning, the private moments with my brother, I've done sparring, I've taken boxing classes, I've moved with people who are bigger than me. I've got punched in the face, and I've enjoyed that aspect because it gave me a feeling of fighting back that I don't think I've necessarily nurtured enough or recognized before. It's that concept of you know you got to stand up for yourself, but just in a fight or flight situation. Well, seeing that, when I was doing fencing, I learned about the competitive aspect and of the discipline, but not necessarily the fight of it. And when you're rolling in jujitsu and you're gonna die because you have somebody who weighs even 30 pounds more than you crushing you in your chest, right? And you're thinking, okay, how do I get out of this situation, right?
Yeah.
I gotta put everything I got into it, or even the opposite where I gotta like breathe. I'm not breathing. I gotta breathe and I gotta slow myself down and move and crawl. And the different sports and the different things that I've done have given me more tools on how to deal with stressful situations.
Yeah.
And I think I need to do more work on that. And I think I need to do more practice. And I'm so far away from masters like Roland, for instance, who is our professor's professor, right? So
Mhm.
Camden Dowhower is our black belt professor, and I adore him and look up to him. Roland is his professor, and to
Yeah.
us, he's like our dad's dad. Is kind of how I describe him. That's how I see it in jujitsu, and so just really awesome people to look up to, and
Yeah.
they're always so calm and so
Mhm.
put together. And sometimes when I'm thinking or acting out of pocket, I'm like, wait, what would these people do? Right.
Yeah.
And they're always so calm. And I'm like, let me just calm down.
Yeah.
And I think that whole combination of learning how to fight and learning how to be calm and learning how to breathe is something that I've learned. Boxing, the first time I really understood it was after sparring and after realizing that the first time I sparred, and I was just dying after the first round because I was like this. I was just like I was so tense. I was not
Mhm.
breathing. And eventually when I started to get more confident and less afraid and I was breathing, I figured out I could go longer. If
Yeah.
if I'm more relaxed, I'm just going to be able to do what I need to do better and go further.
Yeah.
And I think that's true for life as a whole.
Yeah. And I like how you bring up the idea of just breath work and keeping a level head, because that does go across all practices in martial arts, but obviously all walks of life. Do you think that there's something that boxing has taught you or can teach others that grappling doesn't necessarily, or vice versa? What do you think, each of them pull that's kind of unique in each of the practices?
They are very different. And grappling as a whole is very different, right? I would say the jujitsu that we learned, like the Rick Lucero, Roland, right? Like that's a little bit more whole and complete, right? Because they love to put different aspects of other sports in it and apply it to life. But if we were just to say, like, if we were to take a step back and talk about grappling versus, let's say, striking, right? Boxing,
Mhm.
getting hit in the face is crazy, right? It is something that you are never really expecting, even when you're expecting it. And even, like you don't get that when you're in grappling, right? There's
Right.
like, you can have really crazy moments in grappling. And when you're hitting the mat on your back and, there's a person on top of you, that's a tough situation. And when they're squeezing the life out of you,
Yeah.
that's also a super different situation. But when you're standing up and you're moving and you're bobbing and you just get hit in the face, right? Like that's a very stark moment. And I've seen people who are able to handle it and I've seen people who are not able to handle it,
Right.
right? And that is the dividing line when you recognize like, oh, this sport is for me or this sport is not for me.
Yeah.
But what I like to say to people in our industry or whatever is I recommend everyone gets hit in the face at least once in their life.
The
I
world
think
would
it's a
be a better place if everybody's
yeah,
got hit in the face a time or two.
just once or twice, just really just punched in the face and you wake up, right? Like you just recognize for a second like, who you are because you either recognize like, oh my gosh, that was horrible. You get scared, whatever emotions, responses come up. If you have the introspection to recognize what those are, and not everybody has, and I understand, but
Mhm.
I believe forcing yourself into a tough situation could help you grow as a
Mhm.
person. And so I really believe getting hit in the face is good,
Yeah.
just not constantly.
Right.
Right? And preferably in a safe environment. If it's out in
Yes.
the street, you could get hit once and that's the end of the game for you, right? Like, I mean,
Sure.
that happens and that's horrible. And then that's not what I'm recommending. I'm
Yeah.
recommending in a safe, structured environment where you could, after getting hit, take a second and recognize, like, what are those feelings I'm feeling? And what have I learned from this situation?
Right. So if anybody can take something away from this conversation, it's, life, we're all just a part of a dance. But you might get hit in the face every once in a while.
For sure. I would say you're almost guaranteed to get hit in the face. So you might as well learn to feel what that's like. And then you might as well shake it off and dance it off after.
There we
Right.
go. I like
Like
it. Two worlds
that's
coming
the approach.
together.
Yeah. That you should have. And then grappling is a kind of different beast altogether. And that teaches you um resiliency and what to do if your world is crumbling super tight around you, right?
Mhm.
And if you feel like you're in a box and you're suffocating, what do you do? How do you deal with that? How do you deal with getting put into an extremely uncomfortable situation when you're grappling and you're fighting tooth and nail to find the right position and to find the right leverage? That can translate directly into life. It doesn't have to necessarily be a physical battle. People are fighting mental battles all the time. People are fighting, emotional battles or logistical ones. And sometimes you need to take a breath and figure out the situation and find that leverage and find that moment. And sometimes you're not going to find it. And sometimes you're going to be crushed. And the only thing I could say in that situation is just keep breathing and keep moving. And eventually you'll find a way out. And if you don't, that's the reality of life. Sometimes it ends for you.
Mhm.
And Roland talked about that on his episode of the podcast of like sometimes you really got to come to terms with that. People
Yeah.
die. you might die. And if you're gonna let that influence your decisions all the time, you're gonna be just living half a life. And I've really had to come to terms with that as well, because when I was younger and I was really, really sick, I was in the hospital. I went through a lot of operations. And I was more or less close to death, or I was in moments where, as a kid, I was scared enough that, I could die or whatever. And I had that early enough that anything after that, like that fear sticks with you. And sometimes it influences your decisions. But as I get older, and I can really look back and kind of pick my head up out of the clouds, you have the time that you have, and you got to work with what you have. And my father used to say something that I think about from time to time. He would say, um, always be cautious, but never afraid. Right. So if you're afraid, you're going to make bad decisions. You're going to be scared. You might not even be able to do the things you want to do. But if you're cautious, right, you know the dangers. You can approach the situation with caution and with a gentler approach. And so I think about that from time to time when I do get scared or when I do get overwhelmed, and I think about, yeah, okay, I'm trapped in this moment, but I can be patient. I can wait it out. I can think it through, and I can try to resolve it.
Yeah.
And I don't believe there are really end of the world moments. There are, of course, right? But you, even really up until the end, have the choice to at least accept it and think about it in your own way, even before you go out, right? Like, we get to pick how we view the world and how we think about it. We can't control other people's actions. We can't even control half the stuff that happens to us, but we can control how we react to it. And I work on that all the time. And I think
Yeah.
martial arts is a really great place to learn those skills.
Yeah, exactly. And I do think about those situations of, maybe not to the extreme of death, which I get that is very real. But I do think of even, when you are in these moments of mid roll and you are either going to get choked out or you're going to tap out. Either way, it doesn't feel good, and you can consider it a loss, but you can either get back up and you just keep on keeping on and get right back into the roll. And so that in itself can be carried out into life. And no matter what situation, there's going to be a lot of shitty things that come your way where you're either going to maybe get choked out or you're going to have to tap out and either, adjust and just keep moving forward. And so, yeah, I love the way that you broke those down. So thank you for doing that. And so for somebody new to combat sports and that is coming into your gym or your guys' space, how do you help them kind of find the right entry point without necessarily overwhelming them?
It really depends what they're interested in and what sport they're looking for. I like to think that all of our sports are beginner friendly, but we really position ourselves as a traditional martial arts place. And what I mean by that is we seriously approach our sports and the things that we do. And so we do have some fitness classes and some sports that are definitely more approachable for beginners. But if somebody comes to me and they say, I am interested in your jujitsu class, I will say, hey, our jujitsu class is the hardest class that we have, physically and mentally. It is the toughest class that we have. Is that something that you're ready for? And depending on the person, they'll be like, yeah, I'm actually really looking for a challenge. Or they'll be like, well, what do you mean by that? And I'm like, you are going to have 90 minutes of just soul crushing hard work, And if that's something you're ready for, then this class is for you, right? So,
but if you want to switch directions, you can also go over here and get hit in the face.
Yeah. Well, so there I'm like, we have boxing, we have kickboxing,
Sure.
we have Muay Thai. It really depends on what you're looking for. We've added grappling, and so I like to get to know a person, understand what their sports background is like, what they're looking for, what their fitness level is like, and then I would make recommendations and, say this class is going to be better for you, this class is not. None of our classes are easy in terms of even just physical activity. They're all pretty tough physically. So people have to be ready for that. We're not going to sugarcoat it, and we're not going to be, babysitting anybody. We've had people who take a class and then go throw up, and somebody comes back, somebody doesn't come back.
Mhm.
And so I always try to find a balance of I want people to join our gym, and I want them to come back, and I want them to feel comfortable, but I don't want to sacrifice the reality of these sports
Sure.
and what they're looking to teach. And personally, I tell people to try multiple classes and see what fits them the most. I think
Mhm.
everybody should try jujitsu once in their life, and everybody should get punched once in the face. And they would come away, not everybody would learn a lesson from it. Somebody would be like, well, that was hard and I'm never doing that again.
Sure.
And that's okay, right? There's lots of people who have their own challenges and their own approach to life. But I think everybody should do something difficult
Mhm.
as often as they can, as often as they are able to. And sometimes just for the sake of it being difficult. Because sometimes you're not gonna learn anything, but you're gonna learn that it was hard and you didn't die, right?
Mhm.
And that is also good enough.
Yeah.
And failing is also okay, right? Tapping out, I don't necessarily like my approach is a little bit different to sports. I think I have less of an ego when it comes to it because I learned about losing fairly quickly in fencing, for instance. The first competition and tournament that I went to, I lost super quick. And to a girl who was younger than me, but also taller than me. And I think I was like 13 or 14 or whatever.
Sure. But at
And
that age, it's probably like just soul crushing.
it was soul crushing, but it was also eye-opening, and it was really crazy because I was like, I love this sport. I was like, oh my God. I as I was losing, I was smiling because I was like, I'm learning right here, right now. Like this person is doing something better than me, and I can see what it is they're doing. It was
Yeah.
like a light came on in my head, and I was like, oh my God, I love it.
Yeah.
And so losing is difficult, and I've gotten super close to winning tournaments or whatever, and I've lost, and obviously it's hard. It can be demotivating at times, but I've taken from it that I'm learning,
Mhm.
and it's okay to lose. What I found is if I'm not losing enough, then I'm not learning enough,
Mhm.
right? If you're winning all the time, what are you benefiting from, right? Like you're in the wrong environment. Go
Mhm.
and get challenged. Losing all the time also isn't good because then clearly maybe you're not learning the right things, or maybe this is too tough of an environment where you're not going to feel like you're progressing enough, right? But
Sure.
you should be losing 50 to 60% of the time if you actually really want to be learning, because you need to have people who are going to be challenging you and pushing you and making sure that you're actually getting something from that situation. If you're winning 40 to 30% of the times in whatever, you're sparring or things like that, that's good. That
Mhm.
means like you're just sharp enough to start understanding your tools, but you have enough that you're going to keep learning.
Yeah.
At least that's my
No, I love
approach,
it.
my thought process.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And doesn't just apply to martial arts in general. I think that's can go into any space or the people that you're around. And so, yeah, very good points, Boris. So now let's talk about you starting a nonprofit. Because that's a very unique and, avenue that I think that you guys offer within your gym. And so it's within the sports club, correct? And to support low income and refugee youth. And so what kind of inspired this and where is it at today?
We're still in relatively early stages, but
Mhm.
it is something that we've thought about and done since we opened the gym. And I've always been a big fan of community service and volunteering. When I was younger, I would do like different volunteering things like that. I used to spend summers in a library in upstate New York, volunteering there, helping to get the public library into shape, basically
Mm.
ordering stuff, filing stuff. The lady who used to work there was 80 when I started and could be 120 now. I don't, she was ancient and I love her so much. I think her name was June. And she was the like crankiest, like meanest old lady, right? Just picture a mean, cranky old lady who's like small, and that's it, you got her. And we were always kind of scared of her when we were when we would go to the library, but it was one of the only places we could go online. It had like internet or whatever when we were younger. And she would always be looking at us stern and, like yelling or anything. And then when we got old enough to volunteer, we walk up and we're like, hey, do you have any like volunteering slots available? It's a super small town, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And just a completely different lady after that, just the sweetest, nicest old lady,
She's like,
and
dang it, I just need some help around here.
yeah, and she was just like super, super nice and super lovely. And so we helped her out for, 3 or 4 summers, and we would do volunteering in the city. And so I've always had that aspect. I just love helping people. And
Yeah.
I love teaching people. So I think that always goes hand in hand. And when we were opening up the club, um, when we were building it, I mean, this was just after basically the Russian-Ukrainian war started.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of people coming from Russia, from Ukraine, from those areas that don't have anything. They're running from the war. And there were lots of people that were helping us out, just looking for work, just looking for something to do. And lots of teens and lots of kids that needed an environment or needed a space. And so we kind of opened up our classes to them to take in some of the kids who are, just looking for something to do, while their parents are at work or whatever. And they don't have the means to pay. They don't have the means to, take these classes, especially because we're in Kirkland. We're kind of in an expensive place, and to
Mm-hmm.
keep the lights on, you can't charge the cheapest prices
Right.
realistically, right? And we took in a bunch of kids for a bunch of different classes, and some of them have moved away, some of them have moved on to different sports and things like that, but a few of them have stayed. One of them is one of our like star fighters that his name is Danny. We love him a lot. He now helps out around the gym. He'll do like some assistant coaching, he'll sub, he'll help us out with cleaning or some maintenance stuff. And then he'll also, he competes in jiu-jitsu. He's
Sure.
competed in Muay Thai, in MMA. And, some of his friends that didn't want to come to do the sport or tried and it was too hard and they left, made some dumb decisions, right? Did a lot of dumb things and have ended up in some worse situations. And he's a really good example of what sports can do for people in those kinds of situations, and just for people in general, like the discipline aspect of it, dedicating yourself to something that is healthy and good for you, and can put your focus into something bigger than yourself. And now we have a class for younger kids. I think the age ranges from 5 to 9 or 5 to 10 for boxing. We just have a separate nonprofit class. We are probably going to do a similar thing for kickboxing or maybe Muay Thai, eventually maybe a grappling class. We want to get a few of these different programs going. Eventually, we're hoping to get grants to get more funding and really focus on making big programs where not just doing a class or whatever, maybe doing a whole after school program,
Mm-hmm.
providing them a meal as well, maybe snacks, maybe some kind of educational portion of that, because
Yeah.
we have people who have done those kinds of things before and want to contribute. And we are trying to find the space, find the time, and find the best way to do it. And so we're doing a slow and steady approach. We're working to see who's interested, what kind of feedback we're getting, what kind of benefit are they really getting from this, and that way we can continue to focus it and build it as we go along.
I love it. That's so cool. And something that I think can make a huge impact within your guys' community. And so I wish you the best of luck in that avenue, because that's just something I think would be, you guys are already doing a lot of very rewarding work, I'm sure, within that community, but that's truly something special. So very cool.
Yeah, I hope that we get to see it be really big.
Yeah.
But again, if I get to help one person, it's already good enough.
Yeah. You guys are already on the right track for sure. Very cool. Good. So, coming in with little formal business experience, what skills have been kind of the hardest to learn, and which ones came more naturally to you?
The Hardest thing was probably decision making. And it's still the hardest thing because you don't necessarily know how something is going to play out. And it's so difficult to be the one to say this is the right call. And I've made the wrong call a couple of times, and we all have. We've all made that mistake before. And you just got to take the next step after that and think about how are you going to resolve any of the mistakes that you made before. I think something that I also struggle with still is organization and time management. And when you're running one business, you have to think ahead, you have to plan, you have to work on stuff, right? You have people that, you're responsible for who, have their own things that they need to do and focus on, and that's a lot. And then when you're running two businesses at the same time, it's even worse. And then you have to keep all of that organized, and you have to think about how are you going to plan out your day? What are you going to prioritize? What do you got to do immediately? What do you got to do later? Some stuff, makes it through the cracks. Then you got to figure out, oh no, what did I forget? So that is something that I've always struggled with, and I'm always trying to work on it. And sometimes it falls to the wayside when you start prioritizing a big problem or a big thing that you want to do, and then you start letting the little things slide. That's something that I'm always trying to work on. And one of the more difficult things in that sense is also just prioritizing yourself, relationships, things that you want to do outside of that. So I think finding a healthy balance has also been really hard.
Yeah.
The other stuff, work is work, and if you do it, you just learn how to do it, and you just kind of get used to it. So the physical labor or, menial paperwork or writing an email, I mean, all of that is just work. And we all hate it. Work is work. You're never going to love it, right? You got to find the things that you love within the work or
Yeah.
within whatever it is that you're trying to do, and that is what's going to motivate you to make it through the hard stuff or the little stuff.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people helping you guys make Orion what it is today. And so how are you kind of approaching leadership and collaboration when it comes to managing the coaches, the staff, the athletes, everybody with just different personalities and goals?
Sometimes poorly is what I would say. Sometimes it's really hard to get everybody on the same page. But when it comes to the coaches, we have a hands-off approach because we believe in our coaches, and we believe in what they're teaching, and everybody has their own approach, and I think it's best to stay flexible even if you think maybe that approach isn't what would work for you or isn't necessarily working in that moment. We've seen things change throughout time. We've seen coaches adapt, we've seen people adapt. And so if we see something that's really going against what we think is going to be good or right or helpful, we'll talk about it, and we'll say, hey, this is kind of like what we believe is the right thing to do or the right steps, and let's approach it from this way or perspective. When it comes to managing the work and like colleagues, we're very siloed in a sense. Like I have the stuff that I'm responsible for. We have an administrator who does a lot of separate work. Alex is responsible for more of the gym stuff inside and things like that. And so, I mean, we come together as a team, we talk about things together as a team, and we make decisions. And then sometimes you just have to say, no, it's going to be this way, and live with whatever those repercussions are. And sometimes somebody makes a decision and you feel like maybe that wasn't the right decision, but you got to you go along with it, right? And so it's both difficult and easy, because it's only difficult if you really start to grab everything by the reins and say, okay, I'm gonna lead and hold everything, and I'm gonna make all of the decisions. There's not enough willpower and time in the day to do that. And sometimes you got to have faith in the people that you're working with, and learn to give up a little bit of the decision making, and a little bit of the work. And that's really hard for me and Alex, because we're both stubborn control freaks. And so, if something doesn't go the way we want it to go, we can kind of get pretty tough about it. But we're learning how to communicate and let things go.
Yeah, for sure. So you guys have expanded on your space. You're working on building in and getting the cafe finalized, hoping to build upon the nonprofit. I feel like the list just keeps going on. But is there anything else that you're still actively working on as a business owner or within the gym right now that you want people to know?
Um, we were just always working on our program, so we did just add a couple of classes. We're gonna be doing a few events, so that's kind of got our focus. Is we're planning, the next year, and what are we gonna do? What are we gonna focus on?
Mm-hmm.
We just had a fighter win his second MMA bout, and we have a lot of things that we want to focus on that we think we're doing well, and we're expanding our classes. We're gonna do smokers, gonna do exhibitions, and so that's kind of what's on the horizon. I think I have more than enough on my plate between those two businesses. And I'm always trying to figure out who can I give some of my food to, some of my work to. So I'm working on that, and I'm trying to think what can I do
Delegate a little bit.
to delegate and then free up myself for some more creative work and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. Because I have really been grinding for like 6 years now, and I haven't had a lot of time to do stuff creatively for myself or think about new ventures. And so I'm working to make sure that I can.
Mm-hmm.
But in the meantime, we're going full force on the club, and we want to just make it the place where everybody wants to be.
Yeah. I like how you use the term think creatively or get into like a creative space. What does that mean to you?
Um, that's a good question. It depends on where I am in my life. It can mean a
Yeah.
different thing. So, again, right, like I used to do dance, I used to be in theater. I love to write, I love to do creative stuff if I can. It took me a long time, but I had like a little like wooden thing that you put together. It's like one of those bookshelf creative things. I don't know. And it took me a long time just because I don't have a lot of free time. So I'll do something little by little.
Mm-hmm.
It's whatever I can do to kind of just step away from the world and just
Yeah.
focus on a project.
Yeah.
I also want to get back into more sports. I've been super busy, so I haven't had a lot of time to do boxing, to do grappling. I want to go back to fencing. These are the sports that I love, and I want to spend more time doing them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. Looking back now, because it sounds like it's kind of been a whirlwind of the past 5+ years, what part of your journey are you most proud of right now?
Um, Opening the gym, just as a Herculean feat that it was, and that we really did it ourselves, I think is one of the most things that I'm proud of. I don't know if we're successful yet, right? Success is very difficult to define, and everybody has their own definition for success. But just going through that physical process and building it and planning it and watching something go from nothing to this space. And if I have a chance, I'll send you, or I'll have Serge send you what those what the space looked like before we remodeled it,
That would
because
be
it
great.
was a Mexican restaurant before, and then it like was a dive bar after that, and then it got just left as a storage space. And so it was a mess. I mean, it was
Yeah.
horrible. It was old. We had to gut everything. The building was built in like the 80s, so there was like nothing new. We basically had to start from scratch within this space.
Mm-hmm.
And we built it to what it is today. And I never really understood patience until I went through that process, and I understood that little steps can make really big things happen.
Yeah.
And so just going through that process is something that I'm super proud of myself and our team, and
Mm-hmm.
everything that we went through. We did it,
Yeah.
and whatever happens after that, I mean, we already did that. And so if
Yeah.
we can manage that, I think we can manage anything else.
That's very inspiring. And I mean, I just can't, I try to put myself in your guys' shoes, and there had to have been just some level of pressure because you were explaining that, and I don't know when you guys got the space, but you said you worked on it for practically a year before you even opened. Did you guys have a a time frame set where you're like, we've got to open by this certain time? And were you guys able to kind of map it out, or were you just however long it takes, and then we're just going to open when we're ready? Because I mean, I'm sure that's just not a financial breeze for you to go a whole year of putting all of it into it with not getting any return yet.
Yeah.
So how did that process feel, or how'd you guys navigate that? Because that just sounds stressful.
So I think there's two different stresses. And I will say, I think like the financial pressure of it very much was on my brother's shoulders, right? He's been financing this project since the beginning, and even still when we have big remodeling work to do or whatever, right? Like to him, this is his passion project. I don't think he would say that himself. I don't know if he recognizes that, but I love to tell people that this is his red Corvette, right? Like this is his, midlife passion project or whatever. And maybe that's not the right way to position it, but I love to picture it that way for him. And I imagine the pressure for him was pretty immense, right? Like this is him putting his savings into it and hoping for the best. And likewise for me, I don't have that much on the line, but what I have is the opportunity um, to turn it into something meaningful and successful and powerful, and to show that we can do that. And I think it was in the summer before, so probably the summer of 2021, when we all sat down as a group, and there was a lot of us, and we were thinking and we were looking around in spaces. And we were thinking about, like, okay, well, this place is huge, but the rent is really high, so it's not going to work for us. And then, like, oh, this space is really small, but it's in a good location. Rent is still kind of high. And so my brother ended up finding the place where we're at now really accidentally. He was kind of just driving through the plaza where we're at and saw that it was just sitting abandoned, this building. Not abandoned in the sense that like it's decrepit or whatever. It's just
Right.
that it wasn't being used for anything, and it was just like this huge big space. And he goes up and he asks the landlord, what's the space being used for? Are you open to us renting it out? And the landlord had given us the okay. Then we kind of sat down, we talked about the space, we talked about what it would take to start doing that. But we're kind of dumb when it comes to these kinds of things. Like we had nothing to go off of, and so we were so naive about so many things, and we would think like the build out's only going to take us 6 months, and it's only going to take this amount of resources, and I'm doing the research for the business proposal, and to understand what the prices should be, and how we're going to structure it, what classes, blah blah blah. And we were so naive about so many things, and about how to approach this process. And then once you get into the muck of it and you realize, oh damn, this project is going to take way longer than we think. And so second quarter of that year, we were just grinding. We were just pushing and pushing and pushing. And then once we got out into the summer, we could kind of see that, okay, most likely by the end of the year, if we really hustle, we can get it done. And then, so we had this idea that we were going to open, in January. We kind of thought maybe we were going to open in December, but that was, like really a shot in the dark. And so we the whole time we were naive and hopeful. And as we were going through it, we got less hopeful, but stayed naive. And so, like we were just working and working, and we kind of did come to terms, whatever time it takes is the time that it takes. But we were obviously crunching on money, crunching on time, and we're trying to stay super focused.
Looking back, because I know you said, through that naiveness, you start to realize like, okay, we thought we knew what we were doing. We would have like sought out more support, or maybe like, professional advice. Who do you feel like you would have kind of reached out to if you could have done it all over again, to kind of ask about whether it was the business side of things, the gym structure side of things, class structure? Who do you think you would have loved to like pick their brain?
I don't even know if there's just one person. I think maybe I should have listened to my sister more. Our sister has been a big help. She has a business degree, and she works.
That's nice.
She works or worked as a consultant in business, and has a great wealth of knowledge, and has helped us out a lot. But she was more hands off than I wish she could have been, and we just didn't want to bother her.
Mm-hmm.
And I think certain things we should have listened to her more. I would have loved to get input from other people in the industry who I've talked to now. And you just meet people down the line
Sure.
that have gone through the same things that you're going through,
Mm-hmm.
but you only realize it when you talk to them and you can both laugh about what you've been through, right?
You're right.
And so it's so hard to be like, oh, I wish I talked to that person. I wish I had like a team of people who were helping us do what we did, and at the same time, I would not, I mean, I would do it in a different way because, damn, every penny and every minute is worth something, right? So if I could have
Yeah.
saved any of it, that would have been fantastic. But then I wouldn't have learned everything that I've learned,
Yeah, and
right? And I wouldn't
experienced
have gone
and
through it.
yeah, and I think that truly, that is something that creates a space, is that has
Yeah.
been your guys' foundation and your backbone is the blood, sweat, and tears that you guys have put into it. And it sounds like it's been a lot, but wild to think that you guys have been open this long and are still standing and have all new projects on the way. So it's cool. Very, very cool.
Yeah, and we're very stubborn. So we don't know when to quit. Maybe we should have. Maybe, I don't know, but we're hitting, I think, a good stride now, and we're finally seeing the community fill out, and we have coaches that we love, we have athletes and people that we love, and I've had people come up to me and be like, this gym has changed my life. I was going through a really tough time and this saved me, and I'm so glad you guys are here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so glad you guys are giving us the opportunity and to have that community and to have people who believe in you really makes it worth it because
Mm-hmm.
there are some really, really difficult days and really difficult decisions. And just sometimes things don't go the way you would want them to, hope them to, or even believe that they could go so wrong, and they do, And so you at the end of the day, when you're sitting there and you're like, damn, is any of this worth it? And somebody walks up to you and says, that was awesome and I love you. And you're like, damn it. Okay. You're right.
We're
You're
back.
right. All right. Yeah. And so it's those kinds of moments that I guess make it worth it, and that's
Sure.
what we keep fighting for.
Yeah. What excites you most about the future of the club and the community that you're building?
The
Or is it just those little moments that you explained right there?
the little moments are great, but they also make me so uncomfortable. Because somebody, when somebody comes up to you and is like, I love
You
you guys. Thank you guys. You've saved me. And I'm like,
you feel
that's
like your
awesome.
hair's on fire and you're like,
Yeah,
oh,
and
great.
and you're like, I love you too, and at the same time, like I'm, like I'm just doing the best I can, right? Like I'm just running this business, right? Like we're all in this together, and I just, sometimes I don't know how to take a compliment. I'm like, like it's all right, like
They're thanking you and you're like, no, thank you.
yeah, exactly. Well, I'm like, you guys are what makes this place special,
Yeah.
right? Like we can build it, and I sure as heck believe in everything that we've built. And I do think we're special in a way because we've put a lot of love and blood into it. But without the people who go there, without our coaches, without our classes, we aren't anything. And so I hope the people that go there understand that they are as much a part of us as we are of them, right?
Yeah.
And so they contribute to this community as well. And so I think the exciting part for me looking into the future is how can I make it more interesting and better for the community? What events can I do? How can I get more eyes on us so people can see what we're about? And so that people can also be a part of it. And there's so many different things that we can do and that we can focus on that it's both exciting and scary. And like I was saying, decision making is really, really hard. And sometimes you get decision paralysis and you're thinking, well, what do I focus on? What do I focus on? And sometimes somebody will come and make that decision for you. And they'll be like, we're going to a competition right now. And you do really well in that competition. And a bunch of people are interested in pursuing that. Or, a coach says, hey, let's do an exhibition match. I'm raring to go. And you get that set up and the community kind of bolsters around it. And you're like, this is what people want.
Yeah.
And that's what you kind of focus on. And so
Sure.
I'm excited to see what's going to happen next because
Yeah.
we're all guessing anyways.
Yeah. Taking it in
Hopefully
strides.
something good. Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. Well, if someone's listening and is on the fence about taking a big risk, starting a gym, moving across the country, changing careers, what would you tell them?
I'm of two minds of it. because half the time, and I was telling my sister this the other day, I was saying I might go on this podcast. I get to talk about, what I do, which is great. And then, I'm like, sometimes I've had people ask and I'm like, don't do it. Holy damn, please don't do it. Do something safe. Do something structured. And then half the time I'm like, it's the Wild West. And if that's what you love and you want to take a risk and you feel like you're not in the place where you want to be, you got to take that risk. You got to, so many of us are stuck in a rut and we feel like it's not bad enough that we want to do something else, and it's not great enough that we're just so in love with everything that we're doing and we're just stuck in the middle. Push yourself out of there. Run for whatever is the most interesting thing that you can reach, because ultimately you only have this one life. And if you hate it now, you might hate it later anyway, but you might as well try something else, something different,
Sure.
And it's going to be tough no matter what you do. Life is not a cakewalk. It's going to be tough, and you need to fight for the things that you're interested in. You got to work to build yourself a support team and the people that you love. And that can be really hard. And it can be really lonely, but everything takes hard work, and you got to go out and you got to do it. And so that's what I would say is do the thing that is going to be hard, because that's where you're going to find the most satisfaction, and that's going to motivate you the most. Because doing the easy thing and just sitting in that valley of discomfort, but I'm too lazy to do this, or it's just too easy for me to continue doing my boring whatever, you got to just push yourself to do the hard thing.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Great. Okay. Well, we're wrapping up to the finisher. So I always finish every episode with two main questions. So the first one is, what's something you wish didn't have as much of a grip on you?
Fast food.
Oh, victim
I
to
love
the
fast
fast
food.
food. Okay. You got to give me your top 3 or 5 that you're victim to.
Okay, well, my number one is Taco Bell, and it doesn't help that the Taco Bell is across the street from me
Oh,
and,
no.
and my club. So that is definitely my number one fast food vice. I also love chips and I love candy. I have a super big sweet tooth, and I'm busy. I always forget to eat. It's super easy to be like, okay, well, I'll just have a quick meal. I'll just go grab some chicken nuggets or a cheeseburger or a taco from Taco Bell, but it's bad. It's bad for you. I know it's bad for me. I don't feel good about it, but it's the ease of it. And they also make it so tasty. And so that's what I would say. I really gotta, and I think about it all the time, and I'm like, I have so many tools at my disposal to be better about it. And I could cook, and really all
Sure.
I gotta do is just throw some chicken in the air fryer, but I gotta fight myself on it. I'm working. That's my goal in the next year is healthy eating and working on sleep. Those are my two goals for that.
Yeah, for sure. In terms of working on sleep, what are your sleep habits right now? What's challenging about sleep? Your thoughts racing or your
No, yeah. So the and there's lots of things that can factor into it, but I'm often the last one to leave the club, and I end up leaving 11 p.m., 12 p.m. Sometimes it's work that we're doing, sometimes I'm fixing something up, sometimes I'm just unwinding by myself in the club, or I'm having a conversation with Kate. She's often in the trenches with me, and we're talking about clients, talking about work, talking about whatever, or just shooting the shit because, we've just finished the day, and then I got to eat something. And so now I'm eating late, and now,
run through Taco Bell.
yeah, and now that extends my sleep time even further. Then I get
Sure.
home, I got to get ready for bed, and then I'm scrolling Instagram because now I'm just trying to unwind again after all of that work. And somehow it's 1 a.m.
Yeah.
And then I got to wake up for my 9 a.m. days. And so
Yeah.
I think I gotta get a little bit off of scrolling. I would say that's my second vice is short form content, which is horrible. It's rotting our brains, and all I do is watch cat videos and sports stuff, and it's just it's not horrible, but it's not good for you, and so I need to get away from that. I got to start to learn to wrap stuff up earlier. I don't need to be staying so late I just gotta plan my time better and go to sleep earlier and get my full night's rest.
Yeah, there we go. And maybe with how that cafe opening up, you'll have some options here or there that will be a little bit quicker. Is it just going to be coffee that you guys are going to offer, or is it going to be like smoothies, shakes, snacks?
We're hopefully potentially going to do smoothies and things like that. We are probably going to have prepackaged healthy sandwiches and things like that people can just grab and go. So it's really kind of meant to just be a quick pit stop or
Sure.
something that the parents can grab or the athletes can grab while they're there.
Mm-hmm.
We're not a cafe. We're not a
Right,
restaurant,
right.
We are a healthy gym focused space, and so we just want to have a small something that, sometimes people are sitting there and they're like, hey, do you guys have tea, do you have coffee? And so why not give them that?
Yeah, exactly. That's great. Okay, second part of our question is, what's something you wish you had more of a grip on in your life? Sounds like sleep, maybe.
I was going to say, aside from sleep, I would say time management so that I can do the things that I want to do. And so that's really my focus going forward in the new year, how to prioritize, delegate, and manage my time and other people's times, so that one of the things I hate the most is wasting time. Really sometimes can feel the seconds go by and I can't hold on to them tight enough, because there's just not enough time in the day to do everything that I want to do and get work done. And that's what I want to get a grip on. I want to get into a place where I feel comfortable with the way I'm using my time and the way that I'm living my life. Because right now it feels like I'm in the passenger seat of a car that's going very, very fast, and I'm back here and I want to be at the wheel making my decisions properly.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like too, for the few years when you guys were at the beginning process of all of this, both businesses, but then trying to get the gym open, the amount of work and hours that you are putting in, I always kind of wonder when people get into that grind, how difficult it is to get out of that mindset of the grind, because you guys clearly have gotten kind of towards the other side of it's open now, things are flowing. It's still probably very challenging in some of the things that you are doing. But you are at least being able to kind of sit into some of the rewards of, okay, it's finally open. Okay, we have people coming in. You've seen some of the wins. And so I would imagine as you see these wins, it's like, well, what it took to do that was these 12-plus-hour days of just constant going. I can't imagine trying to pump the brakes on that and feeling like, okay, this is normal again, and to try and sit into a more relaxing or having avenues of being in a creative space. So best of luck with that.
Thank you. Yeah, I will let you know if it's doable. I'll let you know when I get out of the grind. I'll tell you.
Yeah, but it is admirable. And I do think there is something to people being able to have that work ethic and put in and create and come out successful, even though through a lot of losses along the way or challenges or redirections and adjustments that you have to make. It is inspiring to see people willing to come together and grind it out and see something come of it. And so you guys are really doing some great things. And so for those listening and that are in the Washington area, swing over to Kirkland and check out Orion Sports Club. It sounds like they got a lot of fun things, and I think something for everybody. I really do think that what you guys are creating, it is a space for kids, for adults, for people that are just wanting to get healthier, be a part of a community, maybe challenge themselves in a more combative or martial arts avenue. Do it. So swing into their space, or if they're from a distance and you guys just want to check out the facility, follow orion.sportsclub on Instagram, or you can check out their website at orionsportsclub.com. Am I missing anything else, Boris?
I think that's pretty good. Yeah.
Okay.
Come by, get punched in the face, learn something new.
Come on. All right. Thank you very much, Boris. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Grip. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You can also follow along on Instagram at The Grip Pod to stay up to date on new episodes. That way you can send over a DM if you've got a question you'd like to hear answered on our roll call series. Now remember, stay sharp, be grounded, and never lose your grip. See you next time.